Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the news agenda with me, Fleet Street Fox. And I've just opened every single open window on my computer, so I can't see you. There you are. Welcome to the news agenda with me, Fleet Street Fox. And today I am joined by the Mirror's editor, Alison Phillips, my boss. To be polite, everybody. Morning, Alison.
Morning, Susie. Morning, everybody. Hope you're all well.
Yes, happy Ukrainian Independence Day, everybody. Slava Ukraini. Now, this is the People's Paper Review, so get into the comments, ask us your questions. We'll do our best to answer them for you. Welcome to our new viewers from the Liverpool Echo website, because I think we're being somehow simulcast on you as well this morning. And those of you listening later on podcast, you're just going to have to stand up to Putin's aggression alone, I'm afraid. Now, so what have we got? Well, the Mirror has splashed on the horrifying story of Olivia Pratt-Korbel, gunned down in her own home as her mother battled to keep the shooter out of their house. Now, Alison, it's hard not to be speechless about this, but one detail from the copy jumped out at me, which is that the accomplice of another man who is being chased and shot at by the shooter and was injured by him drove up, got his mate in a car and got away. And all this while Olivia's mum was injured and her daughter was dying, and he just left them there. Someone knows exactly who did this, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I imagine quite a few people know who did this. And I think that we can only hope that in the next sort of coming hours, I think some people have already been going to police and they've had the same name a couple of times now, but there will be people who know, and they're going to have to just, because sometimes that only can be the truth can solve something like this. And it is just heartbreaking, this poor little girl. And in the place where should have felt most safe, at home, before bedtime, for someone to invade your home and do something, and then for the companies to come and pick the guy up, take him away, and leave a little girl dying on a hall floor, it's just unbearable, which is the word we use today in the Mirror. Horrendous.
There aren't any words really to describe it, and our hearts go out to everyone in Liverpool, and especially Olivia's family, who must be in pieces right about now. Now, to other matters, and also on the front page, above the fold, as it's known in the trade, is the Mirror's call on the government to freeze energy prices. Now, inside on pages 4 and 5, Alison, we're saying that millions of households are on and I quote, countdown to catastrophe. Now, there's people who would call that sensationalism. They call it hyperbole. When the new price cap's announced in the next 48 hours, end of this week, are things really going to be as bad as all that?
Yes. I mean, as much as it pains me to say it, I mean, people are already really struggling with energy bills that they haven't got the money to pay. People who are working, 40, 50 hours a week can't pay their bills now. That because this is obviously energy bills is in addition to to transport bills and to food bills and to every other kind of bill. And then, so the price cap that gets announced on Friday will indicate what's the maximum amount energy bills can start charging us come October. And that's looking like it's going to be about £3,500. And then the concern is it could go up to like 4,200 maybe in January. And then some people say it could hit as much as like £6,000 from April. Now, and we're reaching a point now where people just haven't got that money. So in a way, it's almost like it doesn't really matter what they say now because people haven't got it either way. So someone, and this is what I just absolutely cannot understand, somebody needs to step in and do something. At the beginning of the pandemic, when all our shops were going to shut and everything was going to shut, loads of people were chucked out of work, Rishi Sunak, the then Chancellor, stood up with the furlough plan. And it did look, I mean, in conjunction with the TUC, who very much helped shape that furlough plan, they stepped in to do something. This time, we're looking at a not dissimilar disaster, and no one's doing anything about it.
No, well, as Derek says there, we need to nationalise the energy companies. The privatisation of the energy firms isn't working. Depends on your point of view there, Derek. If you're a shareholder, or if you work for one of these energy companies, then you're probably doing quite well, especially if you're a chief executive or something like that. But of course, it's also worth bearing in mind some shareholders are pension funds. So if you've got a private pension, you may also benefit from this in the long run, although you're not necessarily going to have much fun paying your energy bills.
Even the energy companies this time are saying somebody's got to step in and freeze. The government's going to have to come in and come up with a plan to freeze prices. I mean, you've got the guy who runs the Octopus Energy yesterday saying he's now going to take the minimum wage. He's calling on. I mean, so today in the Mirror, we've got all sorts of people from different energy companies saying freeze the bills. So it's not just people like the Daily Mirror, and obviously you've got people like Age Concern, Save Children, people who work with people with disabilities. All these organisations who work with people who are on the wrong end of this are saying someone's got to do something.
Yeah. Now you can't really see it very clearly on the screen there, but in the centre of that spread, all the yellow and white writing there, those are quotes from various people. So there's Keir Starmer, Ed Davey, the TUC, Steve Rotherham of the Liverpool City region, the West York's Mayor, Age UK, the London Mayor, Octopus, Joseph Rowntree Foundation, Charities, Ecotricity, former Vice President of BP even, saying end these pernicious extra charges imposed for those.
I think everybody, every right-minded person accepts something has to be done, and that. Yeah. But the problem is why we're kind of sleepwalking into this disaster on Friday is because we're in the middle of a Tory leadership contest, where the only thing they're really interested in is sort of taking swipes at each other, and we are sort of sleepwalking into this catastrophe because and we've got a prime minister it seems to have come back from his holiday at the moment, but he's not doing anything, so no one's grabbing hold of the problem, and we're just wandering into it.
No, I've come back from holidays like that, and still just think, no, I'm just going to sit here. Go off.
He's only got another fortnight, and he's probably thinking, "Oh, someone else can deal with this."
Yeah,
but as a result, it's ordinary people who are going to pay the price for that.
Yeah, because when I sat around on my backside, I didn't have a country to run. Now, keep asking us your questions, everybody. Let us know what you think about the energy price gap and what you think should be done with taxpayers' money, with your money, to try and fix it. That's what everyone's talking about, is how to spend your money to resolve this issue with your money. Leslie says, are the winter blackouts just an excuse to hide the fact that people can't afford to pay for electricity? If they turn the power off, Alison, do our bills come down?
We'll be using less, so yes, but then also you'd have people freezing to death and not being able to cook any food or boil a kettle. Yeah. So that's the downside of that one.
6.5 does the other there, isn't it?
I mean, in other countries across Europe, there's all sorts of different, in Germany, I think they're just turning off all the lights in big build, like council offices and places such as that. And we're going to have to look at some different ideas about how we can reduce consumption. But there are ways that these bills can be frozen. I mean, one of the ideas that's been, so Labour came up with, they say a fully funded plan. To be honest, it was pretty fully funded, that they said could meet the cost of freezing them. And then other people come up with this plan that we could just, the money to freeze the bills could be borrowed from banks, but that would be safeguarded that, if they went bust or whatever, then the government would come in. And so there are ways, there's always ways around the situation if you want to solve the situation. And at the moment, I just don't see any desire to solve the situation from from the people at the very top who should be doing that.
It's wanting to do it, I think, is that it's the ideological leap, which I suppose we had with furlough to some extent as well. It did take a bit of a fight to get Richardson to do that. Now, Nicola says, why are they allowed to keep raising the price cap? What's the justification? I'll try my best with this, Nicola, and Alison can correct me if I've got it wrong. But there is the producers of the energy, and then there's a middleman, which is the suppliers, and then there's us. And you will remember that some of those middlemen, the suppliers, have gone bust, and they got absorbed by other companies a little while ago. And that's because the prices of the wholesale that the producers who are getting out of the sea there in the oil rigs, they're charging massively higher prices for it because there is a shortage, because of the war in Ukraine, because there is increased demand after the pandemic. So they're just making money hand over fist, right? The people who actually get the stuff out of the ground are lovely, lovely times. They then pass it on to the energy suppliers. And because of our privatized energy supply industry, where they have lots and lots of small companies, some of them operate on fairly thin margins. And so some of them have gone bust. They can't meet those prices. So the price cap has to rise in order to make sure those energy suppliers keep being able to sell you and absorb some of the cost of the massive wholesale. And that means you're still paying a bit more, well, not a lot more in many cases. But what's really going on here is that it doesn't just affect households. There's at least prices are limited, even if they're limited to the stratosphere for us. Small businesses are facing energy bills that are intergalactically bad because there's no cap for them. And that's going to mean, Alison, massive problems for the economy, high prices, inflation, businesses going to the wall. The Tories care about the economy more than people, really, but because that's how they say they care for people. But why are the Tories the last people to see this coming?
Well, I think they can see it coming. And I think a lot of ordinary MPs, because they'll be hearing it from their constituencies, will be hearing it coming. But we are, and I think probably a lot of them are equally frustrated that we're in this complete zombie state where the people at the very top, Boris Johnson, because he's way out, and Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, because they will literally say anything at the moment to get the job. They're just incapable or unwilling to grab hold of it. And this is and we are sleepwalking into this catastrophe.
Now, Liz Truss's plan seems to be tax cuts, but I think she's living in cloud cuckoo land if she thinks a tax cut is going to give anybody $6,000 cash in their pocket, unless they're a millionaire, and that's the kind of tax cut you can get. It's not a tax cut is going to be a few quid here and there. Rishi, I think, is talking about, I can't even remember what he's talking about, but something fairly vague.
But there's been a lot of sort of vague hints from Liz Truss. Oh, don't worry, we're going to do something to help people through the winter. But it's September next week, is it? So the winter is fast approaching, and I just don't know whether there's any understanding of the level of anxiety that people are feeling, and not just the very poorest people across society. It's just thinking, I haven't got an extra $6,000 a year. I haven't, or $5,000 or even $2,000 a year. That money just does not exist. So it's not there. As somebody said the other day, they might as well be charging people in unicorns because it doesn't matter now because they haven't got the money. So what's going to happen? We have loads and loads of people defaulting on their bills because they can't afford them. You're going to have loads of people driven to, taking really drastic actions, and there is a real sense of terror at what is facing us, and no one is doing anything about it.
It's massively self-indulgent to have a leadership election to talk about schools or, on the never. We're going to improve energy production like in 20 years' time if you're not dealing with this right now.
I mean, I think a government has only one responsibility, and that is to look after its people. That's the role. Everything else is beyond that. It's about looking after people. And that's whether you mean defending them from, people that want to have war with us, or it's defending against internal problems such as this, when their lives and their families are at real risk. Now, either physically, because they're not allowed to feed their kids, or mentally, because they're awake every night, so they can't work out how to pay the bills. That is the key role of any government. And if you can't fulfill that, you're not doing your job.
No, and just the anxiety, just the fear and the worry is gonna damage people's health. It could even cause suicides. Just the expectation of a bill. There are people getting direct debit demands going, we're raising your direct debit by 143% this week, and there's nothing you can do about it. And actually you can. Most people don't realize. You ring up your energy company, you say, no, that's not the direct debit I'm going to agree. And you get it down to what you think you can pay and what you're able to try and meet some of the debts or whatever.
I mean, that is true, but someone in my family,
prices are still higher and the rates are still high.
And somebody I rang up and rang their, who I know, rang up and they said, look, we're really sorry, and they were lovely, and they said, please don't worry, it's all going to be okay. But the bill's still there. It's not. But there are amazing people like the Citizens Advice Bureau, and I think the key point is if anybody is worried. So I've got terrible sunshine showing in my thing. If anybody is worried, talk to someone. It doesn't really necessarily matter who. Talk to somebody. Don't bottle it up and think you've got to do it on your own.
No, exactly. Anything, if you're in debt or if you're worried about getting in debt, there's always someone who can help you find a way through it. And if you sit there and it'll only get worse. Now, Simon says, what is the point of Ofgem? They were supposed to protect us, but it seems that Ofgem are being sent too many brown envelopes. Oh, considering the profits the energy companies are making. Like we said, Simon, some of it is because they've got to reflect the increase in wholesale prices for the suppliers. They have to do that. But it's because of there is no regulator, is there, Alison, for those wholesale producers, the people getting the gas out of the ground or refining the oil. They don't have a regulator. That's capitalism at work. There's a demand for it.
Really difficult position. And I think there was a woman who was very senior in Ofgem who resigned last week or the week before because she felt that not enough was being done by the government to protect people. So that's how, there is that concern. And I think they are in a really sticky position because if the bills don't go, if the people who we're paying our bills to don't get that money in, they're going to go bust. We had a load of them went bust last year. More will go bust this year, and then all of a sudden we'll have no energy at all. So we do need those people to stay in operation, but we need somebody else to come in to kind of help meet their costs. But I completely agree. We're making vast profits at the moment.
So what we're talking about fundamentally there, then, if you're freezing energy bills, is a bung to the producers, the wholesale energy companies from the taxpayer. So.
Or just finding a way through it. I mean, certainly, like you say, there are still people making vast amounts of money getting the actual energy, the out of the ground. And so that was part of how Labour's plan to fund this was going to be by this windfall tax on all the extra profits that are being made by some people. Because some people are doing very well out of this, make no mistake.
Yeah. Now, Leslie says, are we heading into a deep financial depression? If nothing is done pretty rapidly, Leslie, yes. You can make it more of a shallow dip, if you like, if you do something to help people through this. And that is the point of a government, as Alison said.
I do think, without wishing to depress people further, but so we've got a story that we're working on for tomorrow, which is the amount of small businesses like pubs, cafes, hairdressers, little businesses who say they are going to the wall because of their energy bills. And so at the moment, I think the only thing that's kind of protecting us is there's quite a lot of jobs around. But if we start getting to the situation where unemployment starts to go up and we've got inflation and we've got the energy bills and interest rates are going to have to go up to try and get inflation down, then it's looking it's looking very worrying.
It's looking extremely sticky, yes. Now, Stephen Bowden, beyond Project 60, perhaps not his real name, says, could the Mirror reporters run the economy better than the elected government?
Yes.
Let's get the UK population scared. That's the Mirror's agenda. We're worried now.
It's not about being scared. I don't want anybody to be scared, Stephen. But what I do think, and in fact, the Mirror's got a real sort of plan and our goal is to sort of take really complicated stories like this and explain them, because we kind of feel when people understand them, they feel slightly less bewildered by them. So if you look in the paper today, we've got a question and answer session explaining why we've got into this situation, why the energy bills are so high, why the cap's going up, what could be done. Because people have got to have, they're not children. They deserve to know the truth. Because once you've got the truth, once you understand the full picture, then you can, in your mind, I think, kind of work through what's the best way of dealing with it. So I think there are some people who are going to have got plenty of money, and this is a bit unfortunate, the bill's going up, but they'll survive. And there are other people for whom this is a real catastrophe. And I think we feel very strongly at the Mirror that we should look out for the people for whom it is a catastrophe.
Yeah, there you go, Stephen. That's told you, isn't it? But in terms of journalists running the country, we've got one of those. It hasn't gone very well.
It didn't work well. No.
Please don't do it again, even if it's us. Now we need to move on to something else. Keep asking us your questions. Get into the comments. Let us know what you think. What's your energy bills like? How do you think we should be resolving this? Do you want the Mirror, Labour, Lib Dem plan to give a bung to the suppliers? Is that and freeze energy prices? Is that the best way, or is there something else that could be done? Now, to some better and at the same time worse news, on pages 10 and 11 is a picture of Max Johnson, who many of you may remember was in the Mirror a lot as a chubby cheek little boy, often pictured while he was waiting for a heart transplant. Now, the good news is that he got it. He helped us change the law on organ donation. So you now have to opt out, which will help thousands of other children like Max. And he's now, as you can see there, a strapping 14-year-old Hulk, exercising regularly to keep his donor heart from Kira Ball healthy, which is fantastic. But he's also immune compromised for the rest of his life. And he's back in the paper because he's not going to get the COVID jabs that he needs to really keep him safe this winter. So, Alison, what's going on? The government won't license a special medicine for him?
Yes, so there's lots of people like Max who are immunosuppressed, who during the pandemic shielded throughout, and many of them are still shielding now. And whilst for us fortunate people, life pretty much gone back to normal, for many others it hasn't. Or if they are trying to go out, there's a constant anxiety that if they could catch it, the consequences will be really, really serious. And of the people who are currently in intensive care, the vast majority of those are immunosuppressed now. So those are people who, for no fault of their own, are much more likely to get a really serious result of having COVID. And so there is a drug which is available in the States and in other parts of Europe, which gives these people, it's called Evished, which gives these people much greater protection. And loads of organisations that work with people who are immunosuppressed are calling for it to be made available in this country. And so that's, what we think should happen, because for these people, otherwise COVID's never going to end.
No, it's going to go on forever and ever and ever and ever. And they do get, those same people would get free flu jabs every year.
Yeah, and also, the amount of cost of having somebody, if you want to look at it on purely economic terms, the amount of cost it costs to keep somebody in intensive care or somebody who's been treated over many, many years for their illness, at the cost to the NHS. We want to keep these people alive and healthy. And if we can do that for a relatively small amount compared with what the rest of their treatment has cost, that feels to me like good economic sense, as well as the moral case of looking after people like Max.
Exactly. But that's an economic case that it would appear the government doesn't see quite. So 600 quid for Max to have 2 injections of a special new drug, which other people have, as against thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds to treat him in intensive care if his donor heart gets ravaged, as organs can do, by COVID. Yeah, that's apparently not a price worth paying.
I mean, again, I just don't know necessarily it's always that they just don't want to do it. I just feel at the moment there's this kind of, no one can quite make a decision because everything's in a state of flux. I mean, hopefully, you never know, we might get a new government and there might be a building up of support for this campaign, and who knows, we can only hope.
We can only hope, exactly. But although if we do get a new government, I'm not sure it's going to last very long, are you? I think we might get a general election only next year.
Maybe. That's the last thing everybody probably wants.
Well, I don't know. I can't see a government not collapsing with the way things are going. But anyway, well, we'll find out, won't we, in the fullness of time, if we make it through the winter. Right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Keep asking us your questions. How do you feel about Max's injections? Do you think he should be getting those on the NHS? Do you think he should be having to pay for it privately or something? Let us know. But first off, there is some good news in the world. We really had to struggle today to find it. Trust me. Alison managed to find one thing in the paper yesterday. And here it is. Now, as I said, Max is exercising wildly to keep his donor heart healthy, which is very good for him. But this might turn out to be useful news for him if he finds that his exercise regime is starting to interfere with exams, for example. A study has found that we need to exercise for just 10 minutes a day to lower our chance of death by 40%. And even better news, it's only a gentle stroll. No lifting weights, none of that stupid TikTok doing the splits up against the wall thing everybody's tried and fallen over with. Now, this does only apply to the over 85s. But even for younger adults, it's only 20 minutes a day. So, Alison, is this proof of what I've always said, that too much exercise is bad for your health?
I'm completely with you there, Susie. So, totally with you. But actually, I think we all know, like, a little walk does make you feel so much better physically and mentally, doesn't it? Because it just is an opportunity to clear your mind, get out, a bit of fresh air in your lungs. So for people who are able to do it, and not everybody can, but for those that can do it, yes, let's all take our 10 minutes or 20 minutes if we're under 85, and just to sort of feel a little bit better.
Just have a gentle stroll. And remember, it's free. So
it's free, exactly. You don't have to wear all that stupid lycra and all that. Just a little walk around the block.
You're not going to pop a tendon. Your toenails aren't going to fall off. Everyone I know who does extreme exercise is ill in some way. Now, James says the Mirror's agenda is set by the owners of the paper. Yes or no?
No.
I suppose yes, Alison, in some way, because who owns the newspaper? Shareholders.
Well, that's it. You see, that's why we are quite different to pretty much every other country every other paper in the country. So we're owned by, we have shareholders. We don't have a very rich owner. So I'm pretty much left to do what I want. So unfortunately, it's all my fault if you don't like it. But whilst the Sun is owned by Murdoch, and then you've got the Mail is owned as an owner, the Guardian has got a sort of charitable trust, Telegraph's got owners. So that obviously has its downsides, having shareholders, because we have to turn a very good profit every year. We're not just there as a vanity project for very rich people. But it does mean we have that level of independence.
Yes. So no one tells us what to do, Richard, which is the point. Now, Leslie says, thank you for highlighting what we immunosuppressed people are currently facing, and probably heading into your third year of facing it, Leslie, as well, with all this going.
We'll do whatever we can to help, Leslie, but, let's just get this out there so more and more people know about it.
Exactly. Thank you, Alison, for explaining all that. We have to let you go. Anybody else who still wants something free, on page 12 of the Mirror today, there's another voucher for a free Morrison's cup of tea and a slice of cake, which doesn't hurt, does it? So that's 2 meals you've had off them this week, if you can call a cup of tea and a slice of cake a meal, and I do. And if it's a fruit one, it's one of your 5 a day. So go and hit it. Thanks, everybody, for taking part. Those of you listening on podcast, please leave us a review or subscribe. And we will see you all again next Monday for another edition of the Cheery, Cheery, Happy News Agenda. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.